Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. So, if you've been paying any attention to the news whatsoever, obviously you have not seen anything about the Hunter Biden scandal. The mainstream media is doing absolutely everything they can to try to avoid talking about it. You've probably seen an amount of information about it either on my blog or on Twitter or Social Galactic. There's probably some stuff floating around Facebook and all. I wouldn't know. I'm not on Facebook. But the mainstream media, especially in the United States, is assiduously avoiding talking about it. And even on places like 4chan and 8kun, you're seeing a veritable army of shills who have descended upon the various sites and are just bombarding the sites with all kinds of statements about how, what does this matter? So what if the Chad Hunter Biden manages to score with lots of babes? Well, that does it. I'm not voting for Hunter Biden for president, and all kinds of nonsense. But the thing that's so significant about these G-News revelations isn't that a presidential candidate happens to have a degenerate relative. This is nothing new. Anybody remember Roger Clinton? But it's not even about discrediting Joe Biden as a presidential candidate because he happens to have a corrupt and degenerate son. It's about more than this particular presidential election. And it goes to the very heart of why the media has reacted so very strongly to Q and has attempted to undermine everything from Gamergate to Pizzagate to QAnon, all this sort of thing. And the answer is that the Hunter Biden scandal goes right to the heart of this, the golden ticket. And what we're seeing in all of this stuff related to Hunter Biden is we're seeing the way that the ticket operates. We're seeing that it has a price. We're seeing that the benefits of it are not necessarily what people believe them to be. And we're also seeing some of the darker elements that involve the sacrifice of the sacrifice of others. And so when you look at what is coming out of all of these scandals, whether you're talking about the alleged incest, whether you're talking about the alleged abuse of underage girls, all of this is part and parcel of the worldview that has been conveyed by QAnon and which has been ridiculed and decried relentlessly by the mainstream media, as well as to a certain extent by people who are in those kind of circles. But all of this is connected. All of this is connected to Me Too, to the Weinstein scandal, to a lot of the stuff that you've heard about the Hellmouth and the Hollywood casting couches and all that sort of thing. It's all about the stuff that Anonymous Conservative writes about, where he's talking about how success in this world is a very, very different proposition than you have been led to believe. And Hunter Biden underlines the truth of those statements. If you think about it, here's a guy who doesn't appear to spend any time working at a real job. He's been filmed and photographed everywhere from China to the East Coast to the West Coast, engaging in various forms of drug use and extramarital affairs, and a considerable amount of what can only be described reasonably as moral degeneracy. And that's not an accident. Now, there's some debate as to whether people behave in this sort of way in order to provide blackmail, in order to demonstrate that they're loyal and so forth. Or it might be that people who are already known to be corrupt and already known to be completely degenerate are those who are picked out by virtue of their degeneracy. I mean, it's a chicken or the egg situation, and we don't know. And unless Donald Trump succeeds in draining the swamp in his second term, we may never know. But what we do know is a number of observations that we can already make on the basis of the current Biden scandals. Number one, somebody somewhere is opposed to this stuff. We don't know if it's the God Emperor. We don't know if it's QAnon. We don't know if it's the government of Taiwan. We don't know if it's, as reported, Steve Bannon and his friendly rogue Chinese billionaire. We don't know exactly who is involved. But someone, somewhere, believes it's important that the public knows about what's going on. We know this by virtue of the leaks. Number two, we know that the political elite is corrupt and immoral and degenerate. We suspected this. We were told this. But now everyone is seeing it live and in color. And it can be minimized. Oh well, it just happens to be this one guy who just happens to be the son of the former vice president, senator, and current presidential candidate. Now, if you know anything about politics, you know that that's nonsense. This guy has been vetted and covered by the Secret Service and the FBI. There are probably dozens of government agents who've known about this behavior by Hunter Biden. And we've even heard reports from Secret Service agents who were assigned to Joe Biden's detail that his behavior was less than exemplary. We know, going all the way back to John F. Kennedy, that his behavior was completely out of control. He was having affairs left, right, and center, and not necessarily only with women. And there's no chance that the Secret Service didn't know about it, that the FBI didn't know about it. And so we're now seeing proof, incontrovertible proof, that the political elite is immoral, is degenerate, and is corrupt. Because remember, Hunter Biden isn't just some playboy son of a vice president. He was clearly Joe Biden's bagman, going to Ukraine, going to Asia, and collecting millions, tens of millions of dollars in compensation for what? Being related to an elected official? There's absolutely nothing in Hunter Biden's background, in his career, in his behavior that indicates that this is a person who is even moderately competent and moderately capable of performing in a low-level executive capacity. Why is he being compensated as if he's the head of the former head of a Fortune 500 company? Why is he and why is Paul Pelosi and why are all these other children of politicians being put on these boards of foreign corporations? Because they're all corrupt. We know it. Thirdly, this suggests, it does not prove, but it suggests that the various accusations made by the Anons of QAnon, Pizzagate, etc., it suggests that they're probably more or less correct. The level of degeneracy that has already been indicated by the Biden scandal is well off the charts. It doesn't reach the darker levels of some of the conspiracy theories yet, but it's already exceeded any reasonable, normal level that we expect of even the worst celebrities and rock stars. And so it doesn't prove it, but it indicates that that perspective is considerably closer to the truth than the conventional mainstream perspective on how things work. Fourth, it also demonstrates that, actually, I just kind of lost my train of thought. I should have written these things down before I got started, but it also demonstrates that there is a fundamentally spiritual aspect to what's going on here. This isn't just about politics. This is about right and wrong. I'm not saying that it proves that there's a spiritual angle yet, but it does suggest that, and it does definitely show that there is a moral angle. People were asking when Bill Clinton was running for office, well, what does it matter if a man happens to have an affair? Well, now we're beginning to see, because once a politician demonstrates that he is not willing to abide by moral standards of behavior, we're realizing that there's no bottom anymore. There's no one who can look at the various activities that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have been accused of engaging in, of what has been alleged of their activities. There's no one who can claim that there is anything at all beyond the pale for those two. And so I think that there's going to be a lot more that's going to come out. It's almost certainly not going to stop with the Biden crime family. And it's probably not going to stop with the Democratic Party either. It's very likely going to spill over to touch the Bush family, the Romney family, and that whole class of elite pro-globalist politicians are almost certainly going to be shown to be corrupt and depraved beyond our expectations. Even the expectations of those of us who have been calling this stuff out and been very, very skeptical of that entire class of politicians. Even those of us who are opposed to them and who are skeptics, I don't think that our grasp of the full extent of the evil is going to, I think it's going to go beyond anything that we imagined as well. Switching gears a little bit, I'm just going to address again something that I talked about in my recent dark streams. We're already seeing what I told you we were going to see. The polls are already tightening, and they're going to tighten further. And we may even get to the point where, just to remain credible, the polls are going to have to start predicting that Trump will be elected, because he's going to be reelected with such a margin that they're going to need to err on that side of it just in order to maintain any sort of credibility going forward. Not that they should, but I would expect that you're going to see the polls that are not hopelessly corrupted. I mean, the Nate Silvers, the economists, etc. They've got no choice. They're predicting, a 91% chance of a Biden victory. How do you back down from that to try to maintain credibility when Trump wins in a landslide? All you need to do to know what's going to happen on November 3rd is look at the way that the cities are preparing. They're not boarding up all the windows in Democratic-leaning cities. Not just Democratic-leaning, but staunchly Democratic cities. They're not boarding up the windows because they're concerned about the violence of the celebrations in the aftermath of a Biden victory. They're boarding up the buildings in Houston and in Philadelphia and in San Francisco and in Portland. They're preparing for the very, very angry reaction that you're going to see when the surprise of not just a Trump victory, but a resounding Trump victory shocks and infuriates these people who have been told for months that the end of Trump's 4-year reign of whatever it is was going to be over. And in fact, I think it's significant that we've seen very, very little out of Antifa and very, very little out of BLM for the past couple of weeks. I strongly suspect that those organizations are preparing to unleash riots and civil unrest across the United States on November 3rd and November 4th. Why else would they suddenly be so quiet? Perhaps their leadership and their operations have been disrupted, but I doubt it. I suspect that they're lying low, and I suspect that they know that Biden's not going to win. That's why they're preparing, and that's why the cities are preparing for them. So, don't be disheartened. This is going to be an exciting time, and I think that what we're witnessing here is the beginning of the long-awaited draining of the swamp. And this is what we're all looking forward to, of course. So enjoy the coming Trump slide. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.